Welcome to my tutorial for Pop and Bounce for the arcade. And this game took me around 12 hours and 35 minutes to beat. But what makes this game unique is that I spent about 12 hours on stage 4-1 alone, which is probably up there with some of the most time I've ever spent on a single checkpoint in a game. So it was pretty notable. By comparison, the rest of the game probably only took about 40 minutes or so to beat. But that one stage took almost 12 hours to beat. So the main purpose of this tutorial is to give some general tips, as well as really trying to break down what I did for stage 4-1. Of course, it's going to take a lot of muscle memory and practice. And what's interesting about the game is, you can compare the difficulty to some of the longer checkpoints that I've completed. If you look at a game like Gunsmoke for arcade, there was one boss that took 9 hours to beat. And it was probably only like a 30-second fight. And that was the Indian in Gunsmoke for arcade, which is an insanely difficult game. I have a tutorial up on that, so check it out. But for that, I would say that fight was much harder than this checkpoint. The amount of time that it took doesn't really correlate directly with difficulty in this case, because in Gunsmoke, luck is a very small part of the equation. It's mostly skill and dodging and maintaining that concentration. Though you can get in some really fucked up spots. But with this game, it's kind of a dice roll element. So basically what happens in that stage is once you clear out one of the columns, you'll get the ball all the way to the top of the screen. And once it goes up to the top of the screen, it becomes like a gambling game. So basically once you get the ball to the top of the screen, consider that like your... It was like if you were at a slot machine, and you just cranked this shit, and that was your one chance, you know what I mean? Consider that your chance, because every time you do that, it's kind of like an odds game. So the more you get the ball up there, the more chances you have to beat the stage. It is a strange stage, but the problem is that the ball goes so fucking fast once you get it to the top in that stage, and there's no power-ups, and the ball goes so fast, your paddle can't even move fast enough to try to predict where it's going to go. But for the most part, that is a big part of this game, and you're going to see I'm playing pretty shitty early on because I didn't have that 12 hours of practice until I got to stage 4-1. That was a stage I got stuck on. Here you see all my failed attempts edited out. Now, on stage 4-1, I am going to show some failed attempts because I want to demonstrate a little bit on that stage. But for the rest of the stages, you're just seeing, my successful attempts. And you have unlimited continues. You start on the last stage you got to. So if you get to, say, stage 3-2, you will start at 3-2 when you continue. There is, I believe, 5 stages in each world. So when you get to World 4, for example, you'll have 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, 4-4, etc. And you get 3 balls for each stage. You know what I mean? So you have 3 chances. And then when you continue, you start the stage over. The goal of each stage is to clear out all the enemies, basically. All the blocks, basically. The enemies are pretty much your blocks in this game. It's like Breakout. With the top of the screen, there is these letters that say attack. If you can hit all those letters where your ball connects with each letter, you will, if you fill the word attack, you will activate an attack mode. And in that mode, the ball goes insane, and it'll multiply into like maybe 4 or 5 different balls or something. It's a lot of fucking balls, basically. It's a fucking ball orgy, and they go real fast, and they will tear through most of the blocks on the screen. So, in stage 4-1 especially, your goal is to try to activate that. And like I said, with the dice roll mechanic, where it's a lot of luck, it's almost like a gambling game at that point. Because what happened with stage 4-1 is that my skill pretty much hit a ceiling after a few hours. And what I mean by that, I got to a point where I wasn't really getting that much more skilled at this stage or at the game. And, so at that point, it wasn't so much about becoming better and better like it was with a game like Gunsmoke, where I had to really increase my skill to even be able to beat the boss, let alone the game. But with this, my skill kind of hit a ceiling, and it wasn't really getting that much better, In fact, I would take breaks, and I would kind of lose skill because I wouldn't play for days. And then I would have to practice again to get my skill back. But, so because of that reason, my skill fluctuated. It was up and down, and it kind of hit a ceiling where it didn't get much better. And it wasn't because I became a better player beyond that point. I mean, I had to develop the skill for several hours. But beyond that, it was because I got lucky. Because when the ball went up to the top, it did what I wanted it to do. So in stage 4-1, see, it's good I'm explaining this now because these levels, there's really nothing to explain. I mean, you'll get the idea with these stages. 4-1 is like the only challenging stage pretty much. So the way it works is, you basically, once you get the ball up to the top, that's your first kind of dice roll to try to get lucky. But second, you need to light up the words attack. If the ball doesn't light up all the letters at the top and it comes back down before doing that, you're pretty much fucked because the ball comes down at such a high speed that you're unlikely to be able to catch it and keep it moving. It's most likely going to go in the gutter. Obviously, when the ball goes below the paddle, you fail. You lose a life. So that's the idea. So you gotta you have to first snipe out one of the columns in stage 4-1. You have to snipe out a column, which will take some practice to get your aim good enough to be able to snipe out a single column. And there's a few good ones you can pick to snipe out. But the idea is you focus on one and snipe it out. And once you do that, then you got to hope that it lights up the word attack at the top, that the ball lights up all the letters. And then further from that, you have to hope that when you activate the attack mode, you have to hope it clears out all the blocks, all the enemies. So you pretty much have several things that have to happen in order for you to beat the stage. So the odds become really low. So I think that's what, I mean, it is hard, but, after a while you'll get the skill down and it won't be that hard. But, you may be grinding for a while before you break through. So once stage 4-1 plays, I'm going to get into more. You see how your paddle gets huge and all the balls start busting around? That's when you activate attack mode, as you just saw. And a lot of times that will clear everything out, but it's definitely not guaranteed on stage 4-1. There's a good chance that it won't clear everything out on stage 4-1. And if that was your last ball, it'll probably go in the gutter if the ball comes back down. So I am going to get into some general strategies. Beyond what I said, just be patient if you want to beat it. And remember, it's not just a skill game at that point. It's a lot of luck. So, I'm sure there's probably a way to play this game better consistently, but I'll say that, while I did get better, I didn't learn how to do it consistently. And if I wanted to beat that stage again, it could take me several more hours to do so, I'm sure. So, I mean, for me to be able to do it consistently or at a higher difficulty level, that would be on a whole nother level. I think if you raise the difficulty level in the dip switches, you may be able to get the ball to where it travels even faster at default. I think that's what the difficulty does. But yeah. So I mean, that's pretty much all the basics. But I set up this video with editing so that there's going to be some demonstrations. I'm going to show this optimal ball position that I was able to get. I think I only got the position like twice in the 12 hours that I played. But if you're really good at analyzing shit, you might be able to put it together and figure something out with that, because I know some people like to, dive real deep into these games. And if you're into that, it may be something to consider. So I show it probably about 5 or 6 times in a row, the optimal ball position. And what I mean by that is you can do a straight combo where you clear out the entire column with one ball. And it's just a straight combo. If you get the perfect position, and it's probably not just the position. I think it's the way the ball hits the paddle and where it hits the paddle. I think there's probably more involved than just positioning the paddle there, because I've positioned the paddle right in that location many, many times, and I did not get that result. So, you're going to really have to, if you're interested in trying to duplicate that, you're probably going to have to analyze the shit out of it. And I did try to analyze it a bit, but I didn't go crazy with it. I pretty much just said, fuck it, I'm just going to continue to grind the way I've been doing it because I was getting close. Another thing about stage 4-1 is I seen another variation in a video where the columns weren't armored. It was all just regular enemies with no armored columns, and that looked much, much easier. And I'm not sure how you get that variation, but the variation I got was a very difficult one, as you'll see. I don't know, how you determine what variation you get. I was just playing on the default difficulty. I don't know if the game will give you different stage variations based on your performance or how that works. Of course, a lot of these videos are cheated, like World at Long Plays is usually they use save states to cheat through games. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, they did something different and it gave a different stage or something like that. But with all that said, I think I'll be able to show enough footage of stage 4-1 to get my point across. And like I said, I'll show that perfect ball position, which you can try to replicate. I show it a few times. Now, normally when you combo the ball in stage 4-1, you can get 4 blocks out with one position, and that's pretty easy to do. I've been able to get that pretty often. It's pretty easy to get 4, but after 4, the ball usually goes out of alignment, and then it starts going wherever it wants. So I'm going to try to show that. I show a few variations of how I played this stage. So I'm going to show a few failed attempts on stage 4-1 that were close, so that I can kind of explain what can happen and, you know, what usually goes wrong. So I'm going to try to showcase that. And I think it'll help. But ultimately, once you have the basics down, you're just going to have to grind. And as you can see, most of these stages are pretty damn easy. If you play them, you know, enough, you'll beat them. None of them took me too long. But I believe the next stage may be stage 4-1. It's either going to be the next stage or if this does go up to 3-5, then it'll be the one after that, I believe. But it's either 4 or 5 stages per world, so this is the 3rd world. You see, I lit up attack, and now the balls just fuck everything up. But on stage 4-1, they will also exit the screen extremely fast. And your paddle is only so fast, you know, and a big part of the game is not trying to move your paddle in alignment. You're not trying to move the paddle where the ball is going. You're trying to move the paddle where the ball is going to be in about half a second. You want to try to predict the ball's movement a little bit ahead of time. That's really how you play this game. I mean, that's definitely what I learned, is that you don't want to try to line the paddle up with the ball in the moment. You want to try to predict where it's going to go, where it's going to bounce, and have your paddle already there. Because then that way your paddle doesn't have to follow, you know, it doesn't have to be at the same speed as the ball. You know, you can predict it. And if you're good at that, you can keep it going for a while. But there's times when the ball goes so fucking fast, it becomes like a dice roll, like I said. So now you're going to see some failed attempts. This is stage 4-1 that took me around 12 hours to beat this one stage. You see the armored columns make it extremely hard. And what you have to try to do is snipe out a column. So I usually take out the one that's second from the left. But the other one that I would take out is this one that you see on the right that I'm sniping out. And really, it's just a matter of memorizing the positioning. And remember that these things do descend. So this whole puzzle area or whatever is lowering down after every certain amount of time. It gets lower and lower. So you do have to change the angles at which you hit the ball to get it inside the columns and to take out those things, because it's gonna change the angles as it goes down lower. So you see, I sniped out the right column and then I got the attack. I lit it up, but then after that, the balls go fucking insane. And you see, that was my last life, and then that was done. So now I'm starting over again. These weren't consecutive. This is just, I chose some good footage to show for the tutorial, basically. You know, it was very rare that I got 2 good attempts like that in a row. You know, I'm not even sure if that ever happened. So now I'm sniping out the second from the left, which is the one I usually go for, because you can start off with your paddle all the way on the left side and get a free hit. If you launch it all the way at the left side, you'll get a free hit on that second column. And then if you're really good at maneuvering, you can catch it on the other side and do a combo where you bounce it in that second column. So see, now you see I got the attack, and then it goes crazy. But if you get lucky, you'll be able to clear them out. If you don't get it in one full attack mode, you can get the ball back in there again and get a second attack mode. I think I had to get 2 attack modes to beat it when I beat it. So it is tough to activate 2 of those. So now this is the perfect ball position. See this? I only had this happen maybe once or twice in my 12 hours. But I'm showing it a few times here, so you can watch that and try to duplicate it if you like. That is also the positioning of the paddle that you would usually use to try to take out the right column when you're trying to snipe it out. That's a good position to do that from. But it never works out like that for me, where it takes out a whole column on one ball. You know, that's pretty much a perfect combo. But you know, there's a low chance of being able to replicate that. So now I believe I show the successful attempt. And you see I'm sniping out this column, and you can see how I'm getting a combo in by moving the paddle in perfectly positioned to get a combo, if you notice. See, I start all the way at the left, and then I just move the paddle to the right position to angle the ball so that it goes back in the other direction again. And I try to keep that going to take out the column. It wasn't perfect that time, but it was good enough. And as I said, you really have to try to predict where the ball is going to end up and not really try to follow it with the paddle. So just keep that in mind. If you're trying to follow it with your paddle, you're probably going to lose a lot because it gets to the point where the ball is moving so fast. So you see I got one attack mode, and that wasn't enough. So now I get the second attack mode lit up, and that's what allowed me to beat the stage. Luckily, there was no boss fight or anything. I never came across the boss fights. Apparently, there is boss fights that I've seen in a video, but I never got any. Which was good. I was afraid that I might get a boss fight on stage 4-1 because in some videos I saw a boss fight. So I don't know. You may get one if something weird happens with your games because I don't really know how that works. But luckily, I didn't get a boss fight. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's really all there is to explain as far as that's the stage that you're probably going to get stuck on. That's where I hit a brick wall for a while. And the armored columns really make it tough. And the fact that the thing keeps, the columns and everything keep moving lower and lower as time goes on. And it changes the angles where, to snipe out the columns, your angle has to change a little. So you're going to have to alter that as it lowers down. And it's really just going to take practice to get your angles right. And just to get used to predicting where the ball is going to end up, and not so much trying to follow it. So as long as you remember that and, just grind out the stage, just, every time you play, I would play like 2-hour sessions a lot of times. And my goal was usually I would at least try to, activate attack mode once or twice before I ended the session. So sometimes I would get it, more times than that, but as I got better at the game, but usually in a play session, I would try to at least get 1 or 2 activations of the attack mode because I felt like that was kind of like, pulling the lever on a slot machine. That was giving me that little small probability to possibly beat the stage. So that's how I looked at it. So I would just keep, grinding at it and trying it and try to break through a few times. And, whenever I broke through, that was like, that was me taking a shot at trying to get lucky. So that's kind of how I looked at it. And eventually, I didn't play any different than what I was doing, but I got lucky and I was able to... usually when the ball comes down after the first attack mode, I usually lose the ball and I lose the game because I'm usually on my last ball. But that time I was able to get the ball up in there a second time, back up in there again and activate attack again, and that was enough to clear it out. So just some things to keep in mind. But it is a pretty good game overall. But that stage is super unbalanced difficulty-wise. It's like a brick wall type of scenario. But if you have any questions, let me know. And thanks for watching.